Hey guys, it's Jen. Can you own your story? Whatever that story is, own it. Don't cringe at past mistakes or regret your decisions. Be proud of how far you've come. I'm not sure if it's the time period that we grew up in or just being young and really never thinking big picture. But for many of us, before we had kids, we just lived. We didn't use terms like our journey or our story. No one told us that we could control the narrative of our lives. No flipping of the script. All of those ideas that we talk about now and often tell our kids, no one seemed to know about those things or tell us in the 90s. So we just lived. And for many of us, we let others control our narratives. We let others tell us who we should be, how we should act, what we should wear, how we should feel. We were given a standard, and if we didn't fit the standard, we felt bad. Whether it was our grades or our clothes or our bodies or interests or activities or career choices, whatever. We didn't have diversity and beauty, no body positivity, no girl, you do you. For most of us, we were never encouraged to break the mold. The mold was the mold for a reason. So we definitely didn't own our story. But we lived. Before we were moms, we were women, like individuals, people who did things they enjoyed, went places they wanted, had interests and friends and hobbies and a life of their own. And then we became moms, and our stories and our identities began to revolve pretty much solely around our children. Sure, we snuck in a few minutes here or there, maybe a girls' night out once in a while. Maybe we even kept a career going. But I know I quit being Jen and started being Tobias's mom, and I know many of you had similar experiences. And then for a good 14 or 16 or 18 years, we are pretty much completely absorbed in our kids. As we know, things change as they get to be teens. They start getting their own activities and interests and, well, lives that we're now only a portion of. And this is fine and normal and wonderful. It's how it's supposed to be. And we don't want any less for them. But at the same time, it leaves a literal hole in our lives, or at least in our schedule. While we may not be quote unquote #empty nesters, can you tell I hate that term? We do have some space to breathe and are coming to the realization that we can fill that space with us, or whoever we even are at this point. It's been so long that many of us are not even sure who she is anymore. So now, this is our chance. It's our opportunity to choose our journey, write the narrative, flip the script, break the mold, own our story. What will it be? Who knows just yet? We're a work in progress, right? What I do know is that it's going to be great. Our life is truly a journey along a winding path. Back when our parents and our grandparents were at this point, they often got to where we are on the path and saw it as the end, or at least nearing the end, the fall of their lives, the empty nest. Oh, please, let's not. This is only the beginning. It's the beginning of an exciting portion of our lives. We get to choose who we want to be now, what we want to do, where we want to go from here. Turns out it's not the end of the path like they thought. It's just a curve in it. And now the path is opening up in front of us. What are you going to do with it? It's your choice. But whatever you choose, own it. Write your own story. Don't let anyone write it for you, and own it.
I brought my good friend Marybeth Cale of Estuary Coaching in today to have a conversation about just that. Beth has spent over 25 years managing communications programs and providing personal and development coaching and training services to clients from all over the US and Canada. Beth is a certified life coach and a certified meditation and mindfulness teacher. And the cherry on top is that she is also the mother of two wonderful teens who are now 17 and 19. So she is right in the thick of this herself. Everything that we feel and talk about resonates with Beth too. Thank you so much for coming on the show today, Beth. I'm really happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I feel so excited about this conversation, Jen, because you and I started this dialogue when we were both very, very early in our parenting journey at a playground in North Carolina when our friendship began. So it's very exciting to be sitting with you all of these years later and having the opportunity to engage in dialogue on kind of where things are now and what we've learned along the way.
Absolutely. It's funny you say that because I remember that very first time we were at the playground with, your boys and then Tobias, and I was pregnant, very pregnant with Kane. And his 15th birthday is tomorrow. So I take him tomorrow to do his driver's pre-test or whatever, his permit test. So it's funny, we can date how long we have known each other. That's for sure. Well, first, I'd love to start with your own personal experiences because you've always been that one kind of tiny half a step in front of me. And with your experiences of feeling exactly as we all do right now, in the last number of years since your oldest became a tween teen kind of thing and started to be more independent, you have had your own experiences that I have watched in finding and reinventing yourself. So can you tell us and the listeners a little bit about that?
Sure. I think the fascinating part of the parenting, caregiving adventure and walking alongside our children as they grow up is that we too grow up alongside them, right? We enter new phases of our lives as they are entering new phases of their own lives every step of the way. So as we are trying to cultivate a sense of self in our children, we are also, whether we realize it or not, or think we have time for it or not, which most of the time we do not,
right?
We're probably on some level developing a stronger sense of who we are as human beings. So that being said, I think that as I've personally gone through the journey, and I'm sure that many of you can relate, I have learned more about myself and what makes me thrive in this world and what I want my life to really represent as far as my values and legacy, everything, right? My story, just as their story is so important to me and doing everything I can to help them craft and build a life story that they genuinely love. I want the same thing for myself, right? As an individual and as part of our family unit.
I've seen you evolve from this communication first in the mom part when you were here and into this kind of communication specialist, a publicist. You've had there's been a natural evolution to your career. Right. Can you take us down that path and how you ended up at life coaching? Because there is a distinct path I've watched.
Yes. I started in the field of communications really by chance. When I first graduated from college, I was a college admissions counselor, which helped me develop the communications skills that I needed to do any number of things with my career. I really didn't have any kind of specific career direction. And I remind my kids of that all the time, by the way.
Absolutely.
We are all on a journey. And if you show up and you're open-minded and open-hearted and you keep being true to yourself and those things which make you come to life and those things that make you feel like you have something to truly share with the world, you will be fine. You don't have to have the path. You don't have to be on a path. So, and I was not on a path. I did not have that direction. In fact, I started my master's degree in education thinking that I would become a high school teacher. And the admissions counselor job it kind of set me down another path where I was introduced to a variety of experiences that shaped me. When Tom and I got married and moved back to the Hudson Valley, which is where I grew up, I had an opportunity to go into fundraising at that point. And I took that, which also is kind of rooted in being a strong communicator. There's a lot of public relations involved, a lot of writing involved, a lot of storytelling involved, both written storytelling and verbal communication storytelling. So I did that for 6 years. And when I became pregnant with Christian, our second son, and I had been working full time with Dylan as a very little one, I realized I really wanted to own my time. Because of my job, I was always at galas at nights and on the weekends and at board meetings at nights and involved in the community in so many different ways through my work that I just felt like my schedule had become so demanding and wasn't allowing me to be as present at home as I wanted to be. So when I was pregnant with Christian, I started to envision taking those skills and those parts of my job that I absolutely loved and offering them as a scope of services. That being said, that's how I also gave birth to Cale Communications, the company that continues to thrive today. I wanted to feel like I could own my time. I could be, someone who would sign up to be class mom, which I did multiple times through the years, and actually be able to do that because the schedule was mine. So anyway, that business has grown and flourished over the years, but it was probably around the time I turned 40. I think it was, I'm 48 now, when I realized that there was a part of me that had not been completely fulfilled professionally and personally. And that part of me was really calling out to have a more direct impact on people's lives in terms of providing the sense that I wanted to create this safe space for people to really envision how they could design a life that they love, as I had been able to do by, launching our own business. And so
I love to hear that, because I know how often, especially when I talk with my students, either when I walk them down my career path from being an undergrad business major at Ohio State to where I am right now, which is completely different everything than I ever thought I would be doing, and trying to explain to them that same concept that you're talking about a path, and how it's not, it's not necessarily a linear path like we think it's going to be. And so I do definitely want to pin that concept, because I want to come back to that later, because I think that so many parents oftentimes, as their kids are our children's age, when I have a junior, so this is exactly, and now you, especially with the senior, there's such a concept that they should know what they want to do at this point. They should know where they want to head. They should know what they want to be when they grow up. And, I like to try to emphasize the reality of that. There are lots of twists and turns. You don't need to know that just quite yet. So I definitely want to pin that to come back to. So when you did these and you made these moves and you tried to balance now, because I know, were there struggles that you had along the way and questions that you asked yourself of, am I doing the right thing here? Is this the right path? Because I think when you're trying to take up something new, there's the initial kind of, yay, this is so exciting. And then there are the days that you question and you say, why am I doing this? Is this the right thing? Am I on the right path? What kind of struggles did you see or questions you asked yourself?
Well, I think the biggest struggle that we all deal with at various points in our lives is imposter syndrome. Definitely. Am I good enough? Do I really have anything to offer? Do I really know what I'm doing? I never studied business, and now all of a sudden I've got two businesses with my husband. He's my business partner, and he didn't study business either. So do we really know what we're doing? And then in terms of life coaching, there's a misconception that a life coach is some kind of guru. I mean, the fact that there are these misconceptions out there that a life coach is going to somehow, have this magic, wand that they wave over you, and they're going to be able to tell you exactly what you should do with your life. That's absolutely not the case. I'm actually trained not to give advice. Life coaches are trained to facilitate the kind of dialogue that allows clients to discover for themselves those things which maybe they have either set aside or squelched or been afraid to explore or pursue. So anyway, I think there was some fear around that too, and am I going to be able to deliver or help them understand that this might not be what they thought it was. In terms of imposter syndrome, the self-talk, which is something that as parents, we're well aware that this is a daily practice as human beings that we may not have even been aware of until we were parents and we started to see how our kids can talk to themselves and create all the time.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I love that you bring up that concept of imposter syndrome, because I think that, for us, if career-wise, we definitely feel like that. I'll say things and I'll have to remind myself sometimes, wait, no, I literally am an expert in this, because you don't feel that way sometimes. But I think it also transfers beyond professionally, even into sometimes how we self-identify with hobbies and such. So many people, I know, you coach running, and I know, I'm a runner, you're a runner. Like, I know so many times people fail to, well, I'm not a runner, I can't do that. It's like, well, do you run? Because if you run, you're a runner. So you don't have to there's not like a threshold of a certain time you have to have, or a certain miles you need to clock. If you run, you're a runner. If you plant something, you're a gardener. If you cook a meal, you're a cook. I might not be a very good cook, but I'm a cook, I guess. But we have that problem of feeling like there's some definition for each, and there's like qualifications we have to check off before we can call ourselves something, that we just feel this sense of being an imposter.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing all of that. And by the way, you are an expert at what you do.
I know, right?
And I hope you can own that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But in terms of the confidence and cultivating that for ourselves, we really can tell ourselves a story, and that story will shape everything that lies ahead for us, really. If we lead with optimism and a belief in ourselves, we are so much more capable of, enjoying life, embracing opportunities, and sending the message that we're ready for anything, which allows other people to believe in us and open doors for us. So it is amazing how important it is. But thank you for sharing your journey with that too, because it's sometimes you feel like you're all alone when you're struggling with that. But the truth is, I think most people face that challenge. And as you said,
right. And we do have a tendency to succumb to these narratives that we've created in our heads. And you point out about our kids and seeing this, and we all work so hard, and we recognize these things, and we try to cultivate them in our children to, not think of themselves one way, or to think of themselves another way. And we try to cultivate these positive narratives. But I think sometimes we fail to step back and see the narratives that we're telling ourselves.
Yeah. And recognizing that we don't have to have all the answers or be all things to all people. There were many years ago when I worked at that fundraising position that I was talking about earlier, when I kind of launched, this part of my career, I was on a tour of several community organizations with a brand new CEO of a foundation in Dutchess County. And she was extremely high powered. I think she had a career as an attorney prior to becoming executive director of this foundation. I can't remember her exact background, but I remember being blown away by her resume.
Right.
In any event, we toured various organizations in the community together, along with the CEO of my organization at the time, which was a very large, impactful nonprofit and continues to be in our area. And at the end of the day, he turned to me and he said, "You know what impressed me the most about her today?" And I said, "What?" And he said, "She asked questions and came from a place of curiosity. She didn't try to pretend that she had already read up on all these places or pretend that she knew how they should operate in a more efficient way. She didn't pretend at all. She came from this place of authenticity that she too was learning, just like the rest of us are." And I'll never forget that, because I was probably about 24 at the time. I felt like I was in way over my head in that role. And it was a reminder to me that here was this woman who was way more highly educated than me, way more polished, way more experienced. And it was okay. Not only was it okay, but it was respected that
Right.
she was asking questions, and that was the right thing to do, that it was okay to say, I don't have all the answers. I don't know exactly what I'm doing yet. Help me out. And it sent a message, we're interdependent too. So
Right.
that's the other side of imposter syndrome. Yes, we need to cultivate confidence within ourselves and tell ourselves a story that allows us to feel empowered, but we also need to be able to comfortably acknowledge that it's okay to not be where we want to be just yet, and that we can learn from everyone around us. And in doing so, people actually tend to give us more opportunity when they see that we're coming from that place of curiosity and desire to learn and grow.
That's an interesting dynamic that you present, because it's really, there's such a fragile balance in all of the areas of our lives, with trying to maintain that we belong, we know a lot, that confidence level, but still keep that beginner's mindset, that kind of newness, not be afraid to accept. It's like we want to be confident, but confident doesn't mean that you have all the answers necessarily. And I think especially in our role as parents, as we are kind of relearning how to parent, a lot of people don't get to this point and don't want to believe that they don't know how to be a parent. It's like, I've been doing this for the last 15 years. I know what I'm doing. Well, you haven't been parenting a 15-year-old for the last 15 years. You've been parenting a child for 15 years and different stages. And, or what high school's like. I joke that I always tell Tig that, yes, this is not, small town Ohio 1992 high school. This is different. But we do have a tendency, I think, to want to be confident and instill that sense of I know what I'm talking about in our teens. But on the other hand, we have to have that kind of I don't know, let's work together to find out how to do this and to figure out the answers. And sometimes people think that, I believe that they think that it somehow diminishes their role as a parent or their place of an authority if they admit that they don't know something to their teens, or admit that they have a shortcoming, or admit that they have a flaw. But yet that shows that authenticity to our kids as well, which kind of builds more of a level of respect, in my opinion.
Yes. And an openness. If we can acknowledge that we're all flawed human beings and we don't have all the answers, and we've never parented a 15-year-old before or a 17-year-old, and that we're growing up with them, I think it creates a safer space for them to explore their own areas that need improvement, or their own areas that they want to build upon because they're passionate about, or their own mistakes, and to be open about those things.
Right. That they don't have to know all the answers either. We don't know all the answers, and we can it sets apart, this kind of more egalitarian relationship a bit, that we can figure out the answers together and we can navigate this sometimes together. So, okay, that kind of also leads into, I wanted to ask you, I know that we are moving into this point where our children are becoming more independent from us. And so because of that, we kind of have this actual, I don't want to say a hole in our hearts, because it's not a hole, but a hole in our schedules, realistically is what it is. It's a literal hole in our schedules that we can kind of fill with us. And that's another delicate balance, though, of not overcompensating, because you do see that happen sometimes with parents, that overcompensating. Like, I knew how to do this mom thing, and now I'm finding Jen again. But that overcompensation of going too much to Jen and forgetting, hey, you still have tweens and teens who still need you. How did you, in your experiences, kind of balance those two so as not to err on that other side of one or the other?
Well, I think it's like the rest of the parenting journey, Jen. It's one day at a time, right? You don't know what each day will bring. So, I think it's important for all of us to acknowledge the fact that we have been, in many cases, in a role that's almost all consuming for the better part of almost 2 decades.
Right.
And as you pointed out, all of a sudden there's going to be this hole in our schedule. There's going to be more idle time. How do we want to fill that? What do we want to do with that time? And so while we're asking ourselves those questions, it might be that on that specific day that we were registered to start a new online course in some area that we've always been passionate about, but haven't gotten to pursue.
Right.
That might be the day that your child breaks up with their girlfriend or boyfriend.
Of course it would be. Why would it not be?
So, there's always, it's a great adventure, right? So it's one day at a time. So I think the balancing kind of happens naturally. And, we lead with our heart and our values and recognize that aligning our time with those people and activities that matter the most to us is ultimately what's going to bring us a sense of peace in our hearts anyway, and contentment. So I think the balance kind of probably happens naturally without us having to give a tremendous amount of thought to it. That being said, there are certainly, time is a finite resource, right? There are a certain number of hours in the day and days in the week, and we all need to be well aware that managing our time in a way that makes us come to life is a really important thing to reflect on, especially at this point in life, when all of a sudden you wake up and you do have idle time. It doesn't have to be a crisis. It could be a period of great enlightenment when you really sort of dig deep and say, okay, my family, in my case, I still want my family units, my husband and children, to be the top priority. And
Right.
They will be. And that will happen naturally because I adore them and I love spending time with them. And if there's an opportunity to spend time with them, everything else is going to usually go by the wayside so that I can do that. But that being said, they have started to build their own lives, the kids, and it does kind of create this space for me to also consider some of those things I haven't had a chance to do. What are some of the volunteer roles that I haven't gotten to experience yet? What are some of the personal passions that I haven't had a chance to put any time into yet? Maybe I start small and take off little bite-sized pieces of these things just until I kind of go through this little transition period of the kids going off to college. We'll have 2 kids in college in the fall. And actually, my sister Megan, who you know in Wilmington, said that a friend of hers said to her, it's not really empty nest. It's kind of like being a free bird.
Oh, I like that. I really, I could go off on a tangent here about this, but I am not a fan of the term empty nesters.
Terrible.
I don't know. It's terrible.
It's so depressing.
It has the most depressing, connotations associated with it. And I get the nest thing and, when people fly out of the nest, and I get that. And it's a horrible term. And I would like to abolish it. I have not come up with something new. Freebird might be a good jumping off point. I might have to consider that.
It definitely resonated with me because I agree with you. I think empty nest sounds completely depressing.
Sad and depressing when I picture it. And that's, it's funny, when I started this exploration, this self-exploration and this professional move and this idea of this podcast and bringing the information that I have and knowing that I'm not the only one out there who's facing these things, but yet I feel like I do have information that can kind of help along the way. That was the part of my process was that I don't want to ever feel like, and I don't think any mom out there should ever feel like they are living between, just hanging on between phone calls or visits or, something from their children, that shouldn't be. And that's what I picture this empty nest. The connotations with this term empty nest is that you're just sitting there holding down the fort, holding down the empty nest until, the birds come back or the chicks come back, and then you can be happy again. And so many times you'll even see things like that, posts like that now that all my chicks are in the nest kind of thing, I can be happy. And yes, I can understand that concept, but I should be able to be happy between as well. Maybe I'm going to be happier, but I'd like to be able to be self-fulfilled and happy in between that as well. And, we've talked in here about conscious parenting. And, I don't know if you're familiar with conscious parenting, but part of that is that you are not, it's trying to distinguish a connected relationship, and that we can only distinguish connected relationships with our children as opposed to enmeshed relationships when we are not dependent upon them for our fulfillment and for our happiness. They can add to our lives, but it shouldn't be our identities, and our self-worth and our happiness shouldn't be dependent upon their role in it.
100% agree. 100% agree. And we wouldn't want them to have codependent relationships either.
Absolutely.
As far as we know, we get one life to live. So are we going to just always be waiting for someone else to make us feel peaceful and fulfilled? That's crazy, right?
Absolutely. But yet it's really the narrative that society puts on us, especially as women and as mothers, that's what we are supposed to have. That, you see, we're all, how are you doing? How are you holding up as you have a senior? And, I know that I've caught myself a few times already thinking how, well, this will be the last, the first time I caught myself, this will be the last. It's like, no, we're not going down that road. I don't want to get into the sad and the tears of, well, this is our last this and our last that. And I don't want to get into that, because then I feel like I will waste, and you're at this point right now, waste the whole senior year. I don't want to say last year of high school but the whole senior year, marking it by the last time we'll do this, the last time we'll do that. And, I don't want to get into that, so I think that that's something that we are taught through our cultural and societal narratives, that we should feel this heartbreak. And of course, we're going to feel sadness, but it's not the end. It's an end of a stage, but it's not the end of our role, even as parents. And it's certainly not the end of our lives and our happiness.
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, it's the beginning of those, that opportunity to build even deeper connections, not enmeshment, but connected relationships with our kids, because now we get to watch them take this wonderful foundation that we've hopefully helped provide, and allow them to really go out into the world and shine. And we get to honor their individuality and watch them do all of these things for the first time, right?
Definitely.
Going off into the world, meeting people, being in new situations, developing a schedule for themselves with college classes or work life or whatever they choose to do after high school, figuring out where they might want to live and what choices they might want to make as far as friendships go and romantic life goes and all of it. I mean, it's so exciting. And yes, of course, there's sadness. Trust me. Sure. I cried my eyes out for 3 days, and Dylan is only down the road at Marist College. He's literally like 20 minutes door to door. You would have thought that I was not going to see him for 6 months. I think I saw him the following week to bring him a pair of boots that he left behind. But the point is, it was, there is going to be a natural sense of, going downstairs in the morning and not seeing him at the breakfast table. So, those kinds of things. But yeah, to your point, this is another story we tell ourselves that also sets an example for our children. Are we going to tell ourselves a story that is full of, oh my gosh, I need this to happen for me to be happy? Or are we going to tell ourselves, okay, I'm honoring the fact that life is changing. The wind has shifted in my sailboat, and now it's time to explore a different destination and proactively do so with joy in my heart and an openness that there are so many more adventures that lie ahead of me, and some that I wanted to do beforehand that I never had the chance to do. Let me proactively seek out social connection and start a book club, or make sure that we're making time for friendships on the weekends with people who we didn't necessarily get much time to spend time with. Let's go take that trip that we've always talked about doing that we never made happen because there was always a karate tournament on a Saturday or a cross country meet that made it impossible to go away. This is exciting.
Sure.
So it can all be good. It can be that happy nest, right?
Right.
The empty nest.
Yes, exactly. If we must stick with the nest, yes.
Yeah. We don't have to stick with the nest, though. I say we come up with something completely new.
Yes, I think so. I think it needs an entire rebrand. I think
there'll be another business.
I think between the two of us, we can totally have the background and the knowledge. There's no imposter syndrome there on that one.
100%.
We have the ability. We can rebrand this.
We will own this.
Okay, so that we're sounding like we're getting dangerously close into life coaching. So let's talk about that. All right. So first of all, explain, you alluded a little bit to it already, but can you explain what exactly a life coach does and the role that a life coach may play?
Well, since you are a fellow runner, I will use running as a metaphor.
Okay.
If tomorrow you decided that you wanted to pursue a dream of being an Olympic runner, who would you look to for some unwavering support, accountability, a game plan, and a strategy to clarify what your goals are and keep you on track as you seek to achieve them? Who would be the person who would help you overcome obstacles along the way, including fear, anxiety, or any blocks that are getting in the way of your dream? In addition to Tig and your children and some of your best friends, a coach, right? A coach would help you with that.
Right.
So that's really what a coaching alliance is all about, but it's for any area of life or all areas of life. So a coach is really there to help you clarify what your vision is, work through any limiting beliefs that you might have, including imposter syndrome, support you as you develop a set of action steps and a plan to bring your vision to life, whatever that may be, personal, professional, or both. Ensure that you're clear with yourself on any skills that you might need to build and how you're going to go about building those skills, i.e. communication skills, which I think are the cornerstone of success in every area of life.
As do I, obviously.
100%. I love what you do. And really all along the way, provide that safe space where someone can share those roadblocks they're experiencing or obstacles that are getting in the way, or those limiting beliefs that they've always had that they need to finally let go of, and explore ways to improve overall feelings of well-being, which I think is really important if we're going to achieve any goals we have in life, that we are definitely taking care of ourselves. And that means mind, body, and spirit. So my little tagline is, you deserve to thrive and life deserves to be loved. And I think
like that.
Everybody deserves that. And coaches can support that by promoting the kind of self-discovery that allows clients to really consider those things which bring them to life and those things which will make them feel like they're fully alive and fully thriving and peaceful and content. I try to stay away from happiness a little bit because I think it tends to be overused. And I think what we're really looking for is contentment with our life, right? And the ability to thrive mind, body, and spirit. So that's really what we do. So it's really a conversation. It's rooted in open-ended questions, which, by the way, are the greatest tool I have in my toolbox as a parent too, that I learned through the life coach training program that I went through. An open-ended question gives people that opportunity to really have the floor. Think about it. If I said to my son, when he was a junior instructor at his karate school, hey, Christian, do you like working with the younger kids as they, develop the skills needed to become black belts?
That's why you get a yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a one-word answer. Do you like? Yes or no?
Right.
End of conversation.
But we do have a tendency as parents to expect them to elaborate on that and then say, oh, all I do is get yes or no answers.
Yeah. And what we need to do, which is what the coaching model uses, is use the open-ended question, which is such a powerful tool in communication. So instead of saying, do you like working with the young kids? I can say, hey, Christian, what has your experience been like so far as a junior instructor? And what do you enjoy the most about it? So coaching is really rooted in questions that are open-ended and give people the space to really share. And by giving them that opportunity to respond to an open-ended question, I can then make observations along the way. So I'm not giving direct advice unless someone asks for it explicitly and wants it. Sure, I'll give my take on something.
Right.
But the idea is really to facilitate the kind of self-discovery that is needed for people to clarify what they want and how they're going to get there. And that comes from these open-ended questions. And that's all. I've been working with a coach myself since I started the program. So that's been many years now. And we just we only talk once a month now. But when I'm going through something or have something big I'm either working on or exploring, we might talk more frequently. So
who really, I mean, I assume your answer probably as a life coach would be, well, everybody, but who really can benefit from, or how do you see patterns with the types of clients who come to see you, what types of things they're looking for, who really should consider a life coach? Other than everyone.
And everyone is the right answer. However, I tend to work specifically. I mean, I've worked with people in all age groups, but I find that I mostly work with people who are midlifers, actually, who are just at stages like we are right now. They're at junctures in their life where they're either considering ways to reinvent themselves professionally, or they want to start that business that they've had in the back of their head for many years, or their kids are leaving home to go to college. And now all of a sudden they have all this idle time and they're trying to figure out how they want to use it. And we might look at their life wheel and say, okay, if you were to rate these various domains of your life 1 to 10, how would you rate them? And they rate community involvement as a 10 and they rate their health as a 2. All right, let's talk about ways to improve your health. So sometimes they'll come in not knowing what they want at all, but they know that they're missing something, or they know that they're not fully thriving, or they know that they're feeling stuck. Right. And so for the more personal development coaching, I would say a lot of midlifers and people who are kind of at a new juncture in their lives, or want to be at a new juncture, want something different, and they're not sure what.
So I guess for today, for right now, for this short period of time here, you're kind of all of our life coaches. So what types of things do you mention a life wheel? How do you kind of start with people who are on this personal development path? What types of things do you encourage them to do?
Well, I encourage them to think about what it is that makes them thrive, right? What their vision for the future is. If I could talk to you 10 years from now, Jen, what do you hope you'll be telling me about your life? And then we can kind of say, okay, so what were the challenges along the way? What were the things that made it difficult to get to this point 10 years later, and kind of look at things from that vantage point. With a life wheel, it can be, as I said, questions about any domain of life. What are you feeling in terms of where you're at as a parent, as a leader in your community, as a volunteer, as an individual who deserves to feel healthy on every level, and what steps can you take to move forward in that area? What is your vision for yourself? We usually start with vision, honestly, just like a nonprofit or a business would when they're developing a strategic plan. They're going to start with their vision, mission, and guiding principles, and it's very similar to that. Because we all get this life to live, right? And we can design it in a way that works for us. And once we've sort of clarified what it is we want, it's a lot easier to then look at these various life domains and say, well, is this fitting in with those guiding principles that I identified for myself? Does this really align with my values? Does this activity really fit into the vision I have for myself? It doesn't mean you can't change the vision. You can change the vision whenever you want. It's your vision.
Right. It's your vision. You can do whatever you want with it.
Put on the rose-colored glasses one day and put on the dark ones the next, whatever you want. But the point is, it's our life to figure out what we want, and hopefully these coaching conversations become empowering and give people that space to ask themselves what they want their legacy to be, what makes them come to life, what they're passionate about, what excites them, what memories they have where they really felt like they had totally stepped into their authenticity in a moment or during a period of their lives where they really felt like they were using their skills and their talents in a way that made them feel joy. It's funny. I just did a reel on this recently, how we tend to, when we're young, we tend to hear this question over and over again: what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
And somewhere along the way, people stop asking us that question. And the truth is, we can continue to design a life we love at every stage in life. And we should have people in our lives who give us that opportunity to really honor our own individuality. And we are children of our generation, are children of a generation that came before us, for whom finding the job and landing there and staying there for 4 or 5 decades was noble and honorable and expected and respectable. Right. I think we have kind of realized that those who have cracked the code on health and well-being and happy living have designed a life that is aligned with who they are as humans, and not necessarily aligned with this expectation that society has, which is exciting.
Right. Absolutely. And who they are as humans today, not who they are as humans 10 years ago, or who they are as humans 10 years from now, but who they are today as people. I agree. And there is a huge disconnect, and it's a definite improvement. And it's definitely where I think, in my opinion, we're on a perfect trajectory for becoming more authentic and having more of a sense of contentment, like you mentioned, when we do follow that, instead of, well, I decided I was going to do this when I was 22. So here I am 30 years later and I'm still doing it. And I think that that's a wonderful observation that you have, whether it's, personally or professionally, either one of those things. So, so I think I had come into this with the idea that you were more looking for a balance amongst areas in our life, but it's not necessarily that. It's more trying to build up the areas that align with our goals and our vision as we move ahead.
It's probably both. I mean, I think that for some people, having more balance is key. That was the case for me when I decided to leave my full-time job for an organization and take those skills and offer them as a scope of services. And they, by the way, became my very first client when Christian was born. So for some, it's trying to figure out, what is it that's going to create more balance in my life? Whereas for others, it might be that, or I feel like something's missing, or I don't feel like a sense of wonder anymore about life, or I feel like I'm not taking care of myself, or I feel like I'm struggling to communicate who I am and what I want with confidence. It can be anything. And I'm ready for change, or I'm ready to launch this business, or I'm ready to, explore. I had somebody I worked with not long ago, and she said she was ready to explore dating again. And she didn't know how to just get into the mindset she needed to get into to be open to that.
So it can really be anything.
Yeah, it can really be anything. So, and the coach is there to support that person as they open up and share what their vision really looks like. What is that thing that they're not really being true to?
It's funny you say that about no one asks us, because I thought of this when I saw that reel of yours about no one asks us anymore about what we want to be when we grow up, or what do we want to do with our lives, kind of thing. And I know it was a week or two ago that Tobias, out of the blue, asked me, he's like, what are your goals? I'm like,
no
what?
Way.
I'm like, wait a minute, where did this come from? Because aren't I supposed to be asking you about your goals and what are your goals? But, it's like, I feel like for the first time in quite a few years, I feel like I do have goals now that I was that they've formulated and they've clarified for me. But it's funny that you say that, because I don't think anyone's asked me that question in probably 20 years. What are my goals? What do I want? What do I want to be when I grow up, type of thing. And I think that I've never, since for the last 20 to 30 years, I don't think I've ever felt like I know what I want to be. And I still don't know, because I don't feel like I'm through. We're just a process. It's a development process, and there's not a finite end goal. I think that it's just this constant stream of development and down a path. But, in the very first episode, I talked about a new season and how for our teens, it's a new season, and it was a new season of our lives as we are raising our kids. And of course, it just happened to parallel with it was fall. So it was a new season. And now here, I guess now we're almost at a new season again of spring. And, but our kids are at this new point too. And there's so many parallels I see so often about, like, no more than him asking me, what are my goals? And it's like, well, I'm supposed to be asking you that. What are your goals? And there's so many parallels with our stages of life at this point. I mean, all the way down to the crazy hormones, right? But, there are so many parallels that we have. And so I see a lot of the things that you are asking of your clients and that we are asking of ourselves, that we can help our kids find this in themselves. So how would you recommend us as parents to kind of be the life coach essentially for our teens, kind of helping them find their way?
Well, first of all, I love that your son asked you that question.
It's so random.
And I want to ask you to kind of segue into this discussion a little bit more. How did you feel when he asked you that question? Like, emotionally, how did you feel?
I mean, emotionally, I think that I was very touched by the fact that he cared, because, the kids have been my biggest supporters through this whole process. They've been my biggest supporters. My daughter, she listens to most of the episodes. She'll go in and listen at some point. I share a recording space with Kane because he's the gamer. So he has the third floor lair. And so, we share a space, and they're the most interested with what I'm doing. And so I think that that's such a good thing. And I think that that's a big thing for me. And it's no more than I've always been adamant about letting them know about working out and seeing me working out and seeing me living a healthy lifestyle and seeing me in a career. And so I just trying to, because I know that how important that abstract modeling is in raising children. So I do like the idea of them seeing that I too have goals that I have not yet attained. So it's okay to have goals that might seem a little bit far-fetched at 16 years old. It's okay to kind of set those dreams. So I think that made me feel good as far as that, okay, I am doing the right thing, abstract modeling. And then also, I think that, I've really strived, and I had a show last week about empathetic children and raising children with, to be empaths.
Wonderful.
And I think that I really think that that's a very important quality to me for my kids, to not be self-absorbed, and to, especially as teenagers, to realize, hey, there are other people in this world. And so to have him recognize me as an individual like that, who also has individual dreams and goals and hopes and, expectations for myself, I think is a good thing, because it does show that, hey, I want to know about you. I care about what you care about. So yeah, I mean, obviously it makes me feel good to have kids who come to me, especially at, nearly 17, to ask questions about me as an individual. But those are probably the main reasons that I did feel good about it.
I love everything you just shared. And I think it sets the stage perfectly for this part of the discussion, because first of all, you've led by example. You've created that space where you're relatable and authentic in a way that your child feels comfortable asking you about you, right? You're not this like parent who's sort of like distant and removed with your own world. You're allowing them to enter into your world. And that's what we can do as parents for our children, right? Enter into their world, honor their individuality, honor those things that they're passionate about, and recognize that, just as we wouldn't want someone imposing an agenda on us, they don't want us to impose an agenda on them. They want us to ask them the questions, right?
Right.
It feels good to be asked the question.
Absolutely.
What do you want to be? What's important to you? What are you passionate about? What excites you? When do you feel like you're thriving? What was the experience like when you were the head of that organization at school? Or what did it feel like when you came through the finish line at your cross-country meet? What did it feel like when you walked around and high-fived everybody on your team after the soccer game, that you were the person who motivated everyone? What was that like for you? What are some of the things, if you could create an ideal day for yourself, what would that look like? What would you do with your time? If nothing was going to stop you and nothing was going to get in your way, how would you spend a perfect day? What would that look like to you? You learn so much from these questions, right? These open-ended questions. And personally, I think that's the best thing we can do for our kids is just ask the questions and listen for understanding, right? Listen from that place of reflecting back to them what they're saying so they can even hear themselves, and listening from that place of openness to whatever their possibilities are. And the fact that we thankfully are in an era where the kids do have the freedom to design a life they love. The jobs it's almost mind-blowing how many new positions are out there that I had never even heard of when I was even 30, much less now. These kids have a world of opportunity in front of them because of remote work setups too. Many of them will be able to live wherever they want.
Right.
And
I do think that sometimes parents get stuck in that old time mindset of, there are certain careers out there that I know of. And so if you do ask your child, how to design your perfect day, or what would you like to do, or what if you could make a career, what would it be? To them, it sounds like, well, that doesn't sound real, but it is. And I think that there is some degree of opening our minds to all of the possibilities that are out there. But if you're not someone who has been exposed to that, there really are, that's really a career. That's really something that people do and people can do. I think that that can be a sticking point between parents and, near college or college age students that, well, that doesn't sound real. Like, can't you be an accountant, or shouldn't you be a lawyer, or something that there is why don't you study to be an electrician, or something that it's like, this is a tangible, I know this, I am familiar with this. And there's a world of opportunities actually available to them.
Right, exactly. And that is the hard part. There is a little push and pull because as parents, we also want our children to have health insurance.
Right.
We want them to make enough money to be able to afford a place to live that makes them feel good about themselves and makes them feel excited about their life. So of course there's the reality too. But I do think we need to have an openness, and we also need to acknowledge the fact that they're on a journey all their own. And I think it's important we give them some guidance and direction and help them understand, well, this is what a day in the life of someone who does that looks like. This is where the jobs might be located. If you know that you want to go into whatever, you might end up living in Southern California. Are you okay with that? Do you like that idea? And again, using questions to let them figure out for themselves what they want to facilitate that self-discovery. But it's very, very hard, but we do need to acknowledge that they are on a journey, and they may come to some of these things on their own, that going to college, if that's what they choose to do, or going to trade school after high school, or starting their career, that's just the starting point. They will be exposed to all kinds of people and conversations that have nothing to do with us. that will enlighten them, the world will open doors for them too. I think the most important we can do is cultivate in them the sense of self that allows them to believe that they can do anything.
Right.
And then the rest of the world will also help guide them.
Right.
Right.
So to college or to high school, rather, like juniors and seniors, for parents of students at that point, is there certain advice that you might give them of questions to ask as their kids are trying to decide, what they want their next step to be? Do they want to get a job? Are they looking at a trade school, at a community college, at a 4-year institution? And what, school are they looking like? How can you kind of direct the conversation so that they can find these answers?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I think it depends on the child, first of all, but generally speaking, again, it goes back to those more general questions. If you could picture yourself 10 years from now and you're doing exactly what you want to do with your day and you're making money doing it and you're living in a place you want to live, tell me about that. What does that look like? Get them to visualize what life looks like for them. And then take the intel you get from that. And also from questions about their past experiences. When have you felt most excited about something you're learning or something you're sharing or a talent you're using or a skill that you're developing? Tell me about that. What was happening? What were you doing with that? And then look at some of the things they're interested in. I mean, the kids their interests kind of speak for themselves too. And many of us can recognize that within ourselves, there were always areas of interest. My guess is you were probably always a great communicator, Jen, and always.
I like to think so. I like to think so.
I'm sure you were. So if somebody had said, well, let's look at the 7-year-old Jennifer and what she was interested in. Oh, she seemed interested in starting a little newspaper for her neighborhood. And
I did have a newspaper for our home. We had a hotel. My sister and I made a hotel. It was the Brown Door Inn. And because we had a brown garage door, it was very creative. And I used to publish the Brown Door Daily. So I did have a newspaper back then.
See?
So you're right. Look at you. Look at your profiling skills.
That's a perfect example though. So in that, if we look at that experience, like if I was the adult in your life, looking back at your childhood, and when you had joy in your voice just sharing about it just now, there's still energy around that experience. Right. Well, Jennifer came to life when she started this little newspaper, which was also a business, which used her creativity, used her business and organization skills, used her communication skills, used her love of writing and learning and interviewing, and love of leading. Okay, there's a whole skill set right there. What are some fields that might align with those skills? Most of us can look at our kids and see where their skill sets are too, and highlight those skill sets for them. And if we want to give them some more clear direction or guidance, we can say to them, here are some fields that might be of interest to you, not to mention the fact there are a gazillion amazing resources and tools online where they can start exploring career paths. The other thing I want to say, though, about the kind of post-high school conversation is that I think it's incredibly important if your child is even considering college to do as many tours of different campuses that you can, from large universities to small schools to those in between, private, public. I think that each one of those experiences helps the student sort of refine those characteristics and qualities of an ideal place to land. Helps them get to know themselves a little bit better in terms of what they want. I mean, we took our son to a school in the city of Boston, and I thought he would love it. And we got there, and it wasn't his thing at all. So it's just interesting what we think we might like or what they think they might like, and then they go experience it, and they're like, no, this isn't for me at all. They learn a lot about themselves. And it's just a fun excuse to do a road trip with your kid.
Totally,
and let's face
right.
it, the best conversations happen in the car. So pick a few that are far away because you'll make lasting memories. Go have a nice meal somewhere. Go for a walk around the town after the tour. It's a great excuse for little family trips that are harder to come by as they get older.
Right.
So, I know that kind of also goes into my next question is kind of then that next stage, which you are also in that one as well. And, a lot of our listeners is now in the post high school, in the college kind of age, and trying to then, because, at 16, I don't expect him to have a career path, at all, or, even what do you want as a major? Now we're trying to fit, and that's what I try to emphasize, is that you don't have to determine, the trajectory of your life right now, but you just kind of have to have an idea about that next step, so for us, that next step is trying to determine what college, but then for those like Dylan who are there, then the next step is trying to figure out then what they want to do with that experience as far as, and how do they see moving forward post college. And when I get my students coming in, that's where I see them, and I try to direct them that way. What kind of advice can you give for that next stage then?
A variety of internship opportunities are key. Getting the hands-on experience, because again, we all have misconceptions about ideas or misconceptions about careers sometimes in terms of what the day-to-day is actually like compared to what we had in our head. So I think if the kids can get even shadowing experiences or full-blown internships, and sometimes an internship is 1 week during spring break. It doesn't have to be this huge time-consuming commitment. But I think that's key, and reminding them to be true to themselves, and be gentle with themselves. As you pointed out, this doesn't mean you're making decisions about the trajectory of your entire life. This is your decision for now, right? And as they explore the possibilities, one of the things that we told both of our kids who both want 4-year college, as their first step, is make sure you go somewhere that offers a lot of different things that you're interested in. So, our older son, Dylan, is studying graphic design. He knew he wanted to do that from right out of high school. However, we said to him, make sure there are other majors in case you change your mind. And know that you might end up going back to school for something else one day. And that's fine too. Don't put so much pressure on yourself to figure out what you're going to be doing at 40 when you're only 17. That's crazy. The college admissions essay for many of them is the very first experience they've had in writing about themselves and taking the time to really reflect on who they are. Most of the kids every year just kind of go through the motions, and go through a standard curriculum in school that doesn't allow them to really reflect on who they are as humans, as individuals. So a lot of them, the college admissions essay is the first time they've had to say, who am I? That's crazy. And
I don't know. I don't know who I am. See, and like I said, they're at the same point we are, who are we even? They're the same thing.
Yeah. So I just feel like that's the key aspect of this. And the key takeaway is to acknowledge for them and for ourselves that we're continuing on a journey of growth and learning and discovery. And may it always be a journey of learning, growth, and discovery, where we're constantly learning new things and we're constantly surrounding ourselves with people who make us feel seen, heard, and valued, so that we can be true to ourselves in terms of those things which make us thrive at every single step of the way.
You can find Beth and Estuary Coaching on both Instagram and Facebook at Estuary Coaching. That's ESTUARY Coaching. Thank you all so much for listening. Please remember to follow the show so that you don't miss any new content. And please share it with your friends who might also benefit from or enjoy the show. That's how we will grow our community. Reach out on socials on Instagram and TikTok at Reframing Me. And on Facebook, it's Reframing Me and join the Facebook group Reframing Me, a podcast community, to connect with other women who are also raising teens and rediscovering themselves. Until next time, be well, communicate, and enjoy discovering your purpose.